Good morning, kids. Welcome to Miss Khalil Reads a Book. Here's our first book. I know that kids in my class are going to be very excited because we're going to read Boxcar Children number 3, The Yellow House Mystery by Gertrude Chandler Warner. And as long as my cat, Miss Nellie Belly, doesn't knock the camera over, I will read one chapter in each show. I believe that there's a time limit, and Marissa, I think you're the one who told me that, so I'm going to try and stick to the time limit. The Yellow House Mystery, Chapter 1, The Cave. 4 lively children lived with their grandfather Alden in a big house. The children's father and mother had died years before. Their cousin Joe lived in the big house too. He was grown up, and his cousins thought he was great fun. First, there was Henry Alden, who was 16 and in high school. Jessie Alden came next. She was in high school too. Violet was a pretty dark-haired girl of 12, and Benny was 7. Benny was on his way home from school one day in spring. The minute he went into the house, he heard the telephone ringing, and then he heard Mrs. McGregor, the housekeeper, answering it. "It's for you, Benny," she said. She was excited. "It's your cousin Joe." Benny went to the telephone. "Hello, Joe." "We're gonna have a blast, Benny," Joe called out over the phone. "The men are all ready to blast the top off the cave. They say that you children can come over to the island if you stay right with me. You get the others and come along over." "Okay, Joe, we'll come just as quickly as we can." He hurried to the hall to tell his brother Henry. For this cave was the one, you may remember, that the children found themselves the summer before. They had crawled in to see how far they could go. Without even trying, remember they had found some native tools in the sand, which Joe had told them were very wonderful. Now their grandfather had sent some men to the island to take the top off the cave so it would be easier to dig the things out. Here's a picture of Benny talking on the phone to Joe. You see, guys, it is an old-fashioned story because look at that old telephone. Hardly anyone has a phone like that anymore. "Was that Joe? What did he want?" asked Henry. He came out into the hall. "He said the men are going to blast the cave open. Last summer he told us we couldn't come that day. Now he says we can." Benny ran upstairs 2 at a time, calling, "Jess! Jess! Vi! Vi!" "Well, what's the matter now, Benny?" asked Jessie, looking up from her schoolwork. "The men are going to blast the cave on Surprise Island. We have to hurry and go over." "Who said so?" asked Jessie. "Joe. He just telephoned me." "But we can't go without Grandfather," said Violet. "Grandfather's driving into the yard," Henry called up the stairs. "Hurry and come down before he puts the car away." Mr. Alden could not understand a word at first because all the children talked at once, but his driver seemed to be turning the car around anyway. Mr. Alden was smiling to himself about something. "Did you call Joe too, Grandfather?" asked Henry. Mr. Alden laughed. "Well, we'll go down to the dock and over to the island in the motorboat." "I hope Captain Daniel will have the boat on this side," said Henry. "Joe seems to be in a hurry and the men won't wait for us for long." "Oh, I hope they don't blast it till we get there." "I don't think they will," said Mr. Alden. "If Joe sent for you, he will wait until you have time to get there, Benny." "Of course he will, Grandfather," said Jessie. "There's Captain Daniel at the dock already." It was true. Captain Daniel smiled when he saw the 4 children coming along with their grandfather. Captain Daniel liked all the children. "I'm waiting," he said, "and Joe is waiting on the island, and so are the workmen. Joe said they won't blast until you're all there." "Good, I'm glad," said Benny, getting into the boat and sitting down. They were soon on their way across the water to the island, where they had spent such a happy summer the year before. They were all thinking about that exciting day they had found the cave. Benny looked at the captain, I don't suppose you remember the native things we found on the cave, did you, Captain? Indeed I do, said the captain. You children didn't know then that Mr. Joe dug things up for a living, but I did. I knew Mr. Joe when he was a little boy. Remember how excited Joe was, cried Jessie. He wouldn't even let us dig any more inside the cave. That was all right though, Jessie, said Henry. He wanted things done properly. These workmen know how to dig better than we do. And here we are now, we're gonna blast the top off the cave. There's Joe now, said Jessie. Who in the world is that with him? It's a girl. That's not a girl. That's a lady. Well, anyway, she isn't very old, said Jessie. She's awfully pretty, said Benny as they got nearer. Hello, children, cried Joe as the boat stopped at the dock. This is Alice Wells. She came over to look at the native things you found. She knows a lot about such things. That must be interesting work, said Jessie to Alice, shaking hands. She liked Alice at once. She had such a beautiful smile. Yes, it is, said Alice. I feel as if I know every one of you. This is Benny, I'm sure, and you must be Violet and Henry. Joe has told me so much about all of you. She smiled at Mr. Alden as if she already knew him well. Benny took Alice's hand. Let's go see the blast. This is going to be fun for you, said Mr. Alden to Benny, smiling at the little boy. The men are going to let you push the handle, Benny. That will set the blast off. Oh boy, where's the handle? Joe led the way without a word, past the little yellow house, past the barn where they had lived the summer before, past the beach. There beside a crowd of workmen, they saw a handle in the ground. Do you see what Benny's got his hand on? And then everyone's standing there. Kaboom in the background. Here they are, said one of the workmen. Are you the little boy who's going to set off this blast? Now you can take a hold of that handle, push it down as far as you can. Benny did as he was told. From far away down the island came a loud noise like thunder. Then the children saw a great cloud of smoke and then flying rocks. What a noise! They all watched the smoke still coming from the cave. Very good, said Joe. Let's go. Down the path they went. Soon they came to the cave. The big rocks were broken into small pieces, and the men started to take them away. The whole cave was open. The children watched quietly. I suppose nobody can dig in the cave until all those rocks are lifted off, said Henry at last. That's right, said Joe. They'll be taking rocks off for days. Really, there's nothing more to see now, kids. You mean we better go home then, said Mr. Alden. He winked at Benny. Well, I don't care much. Anyway, we blasted and that's more than I expected. You will come over many times when we get to digging, said Alice. We have already taken away the shell pile and all the things in it. The museum people were delighted with all the things, said Joe. You found some things, kids, they had never seen before. That's right, said Alice. Joe and I are going to try and find out what they all are. I shall be working on them for a year, maybe longer. That's good. You come up to our house and see us. He was surprised when Joe laughed. At supper time that night, Benny sat thinking. What's the matter, Ben? Asked Henry. Aren't you going to eat your supper? Oh, yes. I was just thinking. What about? Asked Violet. Well, I was thinking about Alice. I think Joe likes her. I think that's why he wanted us to go home. Well, laughed Jessie, what of it? Didn't you like her yourself? Oh, yes, I liked her a lot. But that's different. I think Joe's going to marry her. What? Shouted Henry. How can you tell? Joe just met her today. "Oh, no, he didn't, my boy," said Mr. Alden. "Joe and Alice went to school together when they were children. Alice has been away a long time. She just came back to do this work for Joe." "Well, I wish Joe would get married," said Jessie. "It must be lonesome for him living all alone on the top floor of this house with a lot of children like us running around." "And an old man like me," said her grandfather. "But I'll tell you something. I watched Joe and Alice today too, and I think Benny's right." "But don't say a word. Let's wait and see what happens." "Yeah, let's. But you'll see, they'll get married all right." And he started to eat his supper. That is the end of chapter 1, and I will continue another session on another film. Bye.